If you have pain or instability in your hips or your low back or your knees, have you looked at your big toe? I'm Griffin from the North Star Body, and in this video we're talking about how the position of the big toe can affect the joints upstream. But first, please remember to like this video and subscribe if content like this is useful for you. So let's get into it. On my Instagram channel this past week, I posted a quick tutorial on how to tell if your big toe might be playing a role in your pain in your lower body, because not everybody has this sort of dysfunction. But basically, the short of it is, if you feel different standing on one foot just normally versus if you take that big toe and spread it out toward the inside, then chances are there's something to fix there, which is good news because it means that we have something that we know we can work on to potentially improve our situation. So this is how the big toe actually affects the joints upstream. So understand that the foot has to be like a tripod, a triangle of a base of support. And the big toe knuckle is one of those bases. Then we have the little toe knuckle, and then we have the heel behind it. And so if that big toe, if you imagine that this is my big toe and it's kind of crunched in toward the other toes, well then it can't provide that nice wide base so that we feel stable in any direction that we want to move, especially when the knee starts to track over the foot when we run or when we jump or when we squat or lunge or whatever. So if I show you I'll show you from the front view. If my big toe is nice and spread out toward the inside, I have a nice base of support. Then when my knee starts to come in, because the knee is supposed to come in a little bit when it starts to bend and we start to load down, then I still have my foot, the big toe part of my foot, under the knee when I'm coming down this way. So I'm still rooted into the ground and that knee is not traveling too far past the foot. But if that big toe is crunched in and my knee still goes in that same direction, now it's gonna go past the toe toward the inside, which is gonna make me feel wobbly and unstable and can start to cause those problems in the inside of the knee. So that's the first way that this can cause a problem. The second way is that we compensate for that. So if my toes are squished together, maybe my knee travels this way and I start to have problems collapsing on the inside of my foot, but maybe I compensate for that, and in order to protect my knee, I start to avoid the big toe altogether, which is a really common problem. So if that toe can't spread and I don't want knee issues going this way, I'm gonna compensate, and now I'm gonna start to favor the outside edge of my foot, and I'm not gonna be able to get that proper spring and that proper load that I need off of the big toe to move. And that's a really important function of the human body. So if we start to avoid the big toe altogether, this can cause foot pain to the outside. It can cause ankle stiffness and a foot that's not able to move and sort of absorb pressure and spread and then come back like a spring that it's supposed to do. So that's problem number 2, is we avoid the big toe. And problem number 3 is that we avoid the front of the foot altogether, which could be the worst one. I'm not really sure. They're all bad. But when we have, remember, our base of support is big toe, little toe, and heel. And so if we don't feel stable on the front of the foot, every time we put weight on the front of the foot, we can sense that wobbliness because that toe can't spread, then we're just gonna start to naturally compensate for that by favoring the heel and pushing our weight back on the heels. When our weight comes back on the heels, then another compensation happens because we don't wanna fall over backwards, and so our hips start to shift forward to counterbalance our weight. And then we get compression in the low back, et cetera, et cetera. All of the dysfunctions that can happen from this depends on the person, and the list goes on. But you get the general idea of how one little problem can cause us to compensate back and forth up the chain, all the way up to the head sometimes, because the body's just trying to stay organized against gravity and not fall over. Okay, so quick recap. The most direct way is that we don't have that inside base of support, and so our knee goes too far past that base of support because it's too narrow, and then the knee starts to get problems. Second is that the body realizes this, or the brain realizes that this is going to be a problem, so it compensates and then avoids the toe altogether, which tends to cause kind of outside hip issues, maybe outside of the foot and ankle issues. And then the final is that we avoid the front of the foot because we can sense the instability and we go back on the heel, which tends to cause more of the spine issues. So these are just examples of how this can cause things. Everybody's dysfunctions, everybody's issues with their body are going to be individual, and different factors play into each other in different ways. But if you feel different after you manually spread that big toe, you're going to want to work on some big toe mobilizations, and you're going to work on potentially even, what I like to do is just take one toe and spread the other when I'm doing, and just work on balancing and moving around and kind of loading weight into it with that toe spread to eventually start to adapt to that new position.